Patrice Steiner.
Here.
Steve Becker.
Here.
Barbara Doss is excused. Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Dick Monin.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
First on our agenda tonight is a public hearing regarding a community development block grant update, specifically the status of the Research Park / Innovation Center feasibility study. Larry, would you start us off, please?
Certainly. The City of Platteville and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville engaged in a cooperative effort to study the feasibility of a research park for the university and city, as well as a innovation center. And tonight we have Veerbecker and Associates, as well as Strang and Strategic Development Services, to present on the results of that strategic research, the feasibility study. So I guess with the council, what you hear tonight will be a brief summary, but if you'd like to have a work session on this in the future, we can certainly do that. I believe there will also be a time for a question and answer period when it's done. With that, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Before I start, by when do I have to make some decision?
Excuse me?
Hey, when do we have to make a decision? We're given a public hearing.
Yes. This is the results of a feasibility study. You're not being asked to make a decision. At some point, I imagine that you will be asked to be a partner in an innovation center going forward. But at this point, there is not a commitment being asked of you this evening.
This is more information.
The only action we would take would be to receive the report.
Receive. Okay, that's what I'm wondering about.
There's no specific resolution or anything.
Okay.
Gary, please, if you state your name and all the other particulars.
All right, very well, thank you. My name is Gary Becker. I'm with Veerbecker, and with me tonight is Chuck Stein. Sorry, Chuck. My brain's freezing up here. Chuck Stein with Strategic Development Services out of Columbus, Ohio. Wayne Whiting is also an integral member of our project team, but he had a conflict this evening and was not able to make it. He's with Strang, an architecture and engineering consulting firm. I want to thank you for allowing us to take some of your time this evening. We would like to give a very brief overview of the study that we've been engaged in for the last 4.5 months, 5 months now. I believe you all received a copy of the report as well as an executive summary, and we will be happy to take questions at the end. The first question that comes to mind is why an innovation center? And a very quick and brief answer to that question is because the income and growth in income and wages in this region lags both the state and the national growth in income by about 85%. So we're 85%, this region is 85% below the state and national levels for household income, per capita income, and growth in wages. And one way of getting better growth in income is by helping businesses to innovate and develop new products and utilize the tremendous assets that are at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville and the knowledge and innovation and research that occurs there to help those businesses create new products, commercialize products, and grow their businesses. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck and talk about what an innovation center is and talk about the study.
Thank you. I'm Chuck Stein. Innovation centers are not an experiment. They're a proven economic development tool. They've been around since arguably since the 50s, but really grew in the 80s and 90s, and currently there are 1,500 of these in North America. 85% can operate without subsidy. So we've learned over the years how to develop these centers. We've learned the common denominators of success and failure over the years, thanks to the National Business Incubation Association. I've been developing incubators and innovation centers for 20 years, and I love doing rural projects because in a rural environment, an innovation center can have a much bigger impact than in a metro area where that one may have 10 times the economic output, but it gets lost in all the other things. So we're kind of excited about the opportunity here in Platteville because you've got some key resources that frankly haven't been utilized to the extent that they could be, one of which is certainly the university. But what you find in rural environments when it comes to entrepreneurship is a lack of connectivity. And that develops pretty much on its own in a more urban environment, but that lack of connectivity inhibits innovation. And so the latest economic development theory today is development of a regional innovation system where you have probably more than likely an economic development organization serving as an innovation intermediary that connects the various resources and thoughts of academia, government at all levels, from the city to the federal, and then the private sector, but not just your big Fortune 500 companies. It's also very inclusive of small and medium-sized enterprises, and that's the key to exchanging this information, connecting things. You know, you've probably heard about technology-led economic development. Well, that just focused on one sector. Innovation-led economic development is multi-dimensional, cross-discipline, if you will. So we interviewed, my partner and I interviewed 63 individuals here in the region from Dubuque to Madison, but most of them took place here. Not quite half of those interviews were with people connected to the university. We met with 13 economic developers, and I did some due diligence with 4 other innovation center managers around the country that had not too dissimilar circumstances from this. But the whole idea is to create wealth in the region through commercialization of intellectual property. Now, and my definition of feasible, by the way, is, do I think this center has a reasonable opportunity to be financially self-sufficient within a 5-year time frame? And we ran the pro formas. If you care to look at the financials in there, we believe that this can be achieved here. So we've recommended a 30,000 square foot facility. That research shows that that's the minimum size that can be constructed, and if you develop to be ultimately financially self-sufficient. So if you can develop a facility of that size and have about 75% of the space producing income, then statistically you'll generate about 60% of your operating income from rent. And then there are other incremental streams that we'll touch on in a moment. But our interviews covered the 14-county area, which is approximate 75-mile radius of here. Again, research shows entrepreneurs will drive around an hour to get to one of these things. We think there's a high probability of breaking even by year 5 with a cumulative operating deficit of around $260,000. We also are very conservative in our financial projections and assume that 90% occupancy is full occupancy. But I haven't really told you what this is, okay? And I think the best way to define what an innovation center is take the building out of your mind for a minute, because buildings don't commercialize new businesses. Only people and programs do. And what separates an innovation center from all these other resources that are out there to help small business is that they proactively tailor a program specifically to each company in there that makes their hurdle rate. They're very selective about who comes in, as opposed to a small business development center who has to help anybody who walks through the door. So SBDCs are overworked and underpaid. They have hundreds of clients. They don't have time to effectively, you know, if the next Bill Gates walked in, they just don't have time to help him commercialize Microsoft because they've got so many other people that they have to help. As opposed to an innovation center that's very selective. You bring in only the companies that have the highest growth potential, highest wage potential, highest job creation potential. And then you surround them and nurture them with the care and feeding that they don't have. Many of these people that come up with these really bright ideas have very little business background or acumen. And so they don't know where to get capital, how to grow their business. They don't know the marketing chains, but they've got a wow idea that kind of makes sense to the people that are managing this proposition. We believe that deal flow will come from the university, but statistically, most these things associated with universities, whether sponsored by or loosely affiliated with, seldom have more than about 25% of the businesses in there that come from university intellectual property. Pardon me. They'll come from existing businesses, spin-outs from existing businesses, and I think we have 8 Fortune 500 companies in the region, and hundreds, if thousands really, of small, medium-sized enterprises. Displaced workers who are out of work will start a business. If you read the national news and the financial things, entrepreneurship always goes up as the economy goes down. Skunk Works projects, that's where a company will, a couple people on their staff or team will come up with an idea, but they can't develop it within their bureaucracy. And so they put them in an innovation center, let them develop and commercialize that, and then bring that new division, if you will, back in once it's commercialized. And then you can't predict where people come from, just unidentified individuals that you can't think of today. And then also the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. I think they can really be a partner in reaching out to Dubuque. Dubuque has no small business anything over there from an economic development perspective. All they have is an SBDC. And so the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation is very much in favor of this and will partner and send deal flow our way. The focus of this is manufacturing and technology companies, but we see other opportunities in renewable energy. These are mainly university fortes, bioplastics, IT, software development, and training around other UWP resources. Regional support, this region has a entrepreneurial history. There's a lot of businesses here that have been started and founded in a garage or in a backyard that have now grown to substantial businesses and spun off others. We found strong support, almost universal support for something like this. The entrepreneurs especially in the region say, yes, we need something like this. We've been waiting for something like this to come along. We will get involved. We want to help make this successful. Opportunities are increased commercialization of intellectual property that's developed at the university here. It's certainly not a research university, but they do develop intellectual property in a number of areas that can be commercialized. Expand the well-respected teaching history at the university to include an entrepreneurial and an innovation culture, and expand the university as a source of intellectual property and a well-trained workforce. Other opportunities, the linkage to Dubuque, developing a regional innovation network, demand for centers of excellence from the university and federal partnerships, applied research and education. What are the needs that we have going forward? We need to determine an institutional and an individual champion to lead this project to completion. We need to retain some kind of experienced incubation professional to help guide you till you get this developed. It'll be a coordinated regional effort. We'll focus on developing access to capital for these startup companies, and we'll have entrepreneurial mentoring and support. Gary, would you like to take over? Sure. I'll be back.
Another part of our study was looking at the cost, and it's probably something that's on the top of all your minds right now. What is this going to cost? And in coming up with cost estimates for this facility, we examined 3 different sites. 2 of the sites were out on the highway. One was in an area that was not currently served with sewer and water. One is currently served with sewer and water. And then the 3rd site was a downtown infill site. And we looked at those sites and developed some cost estimates for what it would take to develop the site and then put a facility on that site. Strang Architects developed 3 different layouts so we could get a good sense for how a facility would lay out on that particular site. And again, we're talking about a 30,000 square foot facility. The construction cost estimates range from a hair under $5 million to $6.6 million for the downtown site. Now, that may sound a little high, but keep in mind that we are, number one, we're on the very front end planning stage for this project. This is a collaborative project, a partnership between the university and the city of Platteville. And so there are the needs of two different organizations that need to be taken into account. We've assumed that the facility will reflect an identity and will have character. In other words, you could put up a metal building for a lot less than the money that we're talking about here, but it wouldn't reflect much of an identity and it wouldn't have much character. And so we're assuming that because of the organizations involved, we would want this to have some of those characteristics. The other thing about an innovation center is at this point in time, we don't know who the tenants are going to be. And so we need to design the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems to be able to serve a variety of tenants who we don't know who they are. So those systems are a little bit overbuilt in these cost estimates. But it's a lot cheaper to do it on the front end, to put in the right systems on the front end, than it is to rehab those systems once the building is constructed and you've got tenants in there. And then finally, our cost estimates are forward-looking. That is, we're taking into account anticipated inflation and trying to look forward at what construction costs might be in the next year or two. We do have this is about a 2-year timeline for build-out. There's about a year of pre-development work that needs to be done, and then there would be a year of construction. So another big part of the budget is the pre-development work that needs to be done. We're recommending that a project manager be hired, since a big part of this, of making sure the building gets off on the right foot, is doing a lot of marketing before the building is open. And then there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces related to this, including fundraising. Fundraising and the marketing and branding, and then the design and construction. So you need somebody who's going to be staying on top of this. And so we're recommending that a project manager be hired on the front end of this, this development schedule. So all those development costs, part of the development costs include $250,000 to hire a professional fundraiser to operate a $4 million capital campaign, as well as we expect that for the first 5 years, we expect that the facility will break even within 5 years, but up to that 5th year is going to incur about $260,000 in losses, operating losses. And so that $260,000 needs to be built in on the front end so that you raise the money to make sure it's there when it's needed in those first 5 years. So that's the nuts and bolts. I think we're on our 15 minutes here. Did you want to say a few more comments?
Just want to wrap up with a couple key points, because I think you need to know what's in it for me. The impacts on the community are, number one, an increased tax base. Statistically, these innovation centers pay roughly 1/3 above the existing county average wage in all the counties that they operate in around the country. So those higher wages support home ownership and therefore property taxes, retail and amenities and sales taxes. It's going to help you attract more residents, including those who left the area because they couldn't get a good job opportunity here. And I see that everywhere I go, particularly in rural areas, especially where you have a university. Young people are fond of the university, they have roots, maybe they grew up here, but they have to leave and go to the big city in order to get a job that'll pay them what they want. I think it'll also help you retain more students. So just in wrap up, the next steps are commit to the project, secure a champion, select and secure the site. I've recommended that you form a private 501c3 nonprofit corporation to operate this. Not the university run it, not the city run it. But you all may own it and then lease it to that corporation for $1 a year or whatever, so you can control it. Raise the funds, establish the marketing, and then begin the design process. So I think we went a little over our time, but Gary and I would be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
I've got a couple for you. Looking at the next steps here, you have 9 of them, and you just read them off. In order to commit to the project, I think we have to have a pretty good idea what our cost structure is going to be. No one's going to sign on for God knows what. And,
right.
Do you have any kind of sense of what we're talking about here in a partnership? And I know you listed a number of potential partners, any of which could have varying amounts of participation in any kind of project like this.
Sure.
Is there something in mind for the city, or?
If I look at these 1,500 around the country, no two have been financed in exactly the same fashion. One thing in your favor, the Economic Development Administration, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, has had a $240 or $50 million a year budget just for bricks and mortar for these centers for about the last 20 years each year. And we don't know how long that may continue, but it's still available. That money usually gets doled out at about $2 million to $2.2 million per project. If you're in a rural area, you have a better opportunity of getting this than, you know, your urban cousins. If you have wage differentials like you do, that again increases your probability. The state has expressed some interest in supporting this. The university has developed a number of private sector relationships, both within and outside the community, that have indicated a desire, if you will, to help support financially the development of something like this. And then, you know, to a smaller degree, the private sector may step up. But I think that's pretty limited here in the region. And yes, the city and county will both be asked to consider financial participation. I honestly believe the city and county are the two largest beneficiaries of the success of something like this. When you create a job, you create a revenue stream for 35 years. So does that answer your question, sir?
I've got it.
Generally.
Okay. Some more. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything except the number.
Yeah. On page 95 of the report, there's a two-page construction and pre-operation budget. And because there are some things that need to happen right away before there's time to engage a fundraising campaign or to write grant applications and have those grants funded, we're estimating a need for somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 each from the city and the university to get this up and running. And that includes hiring the project manager, getting a grant writer engaged, and getting up to speed with kicking off a fundraising campaign.
What timeline do you have for needing that money? Meaning next week, next month, next year? What are we thinking here?
Well, there is a schedule laid out in here as well, and that's on.
I'm asking you these questions to get the information.
Yep.
To everybody.
Nope. That's fine. And on page 93 and 94 in the report, there's a fairly detailed timeline, and that timeline, as I mentioned, assumes a 2-year construction schedule, and we're assuming that you want to get started on this. So the timeline starts in April, and it's April. It's almost May now, but let's say it start in May, and then if we can start in May with this, then we expect that you can open the doors and have a grand opening celebration in April, May of 2014. So that's kind of what we've got laid out. Now, do you have to start right now? That's more of a political decision between the city and the university and coming to an agreement as to exactly what the schedule should be. But what we've got laid out assumes starting this right away.
When you note 100 to 150,000 each between the university and the city as kind of startup capital, are we anticipating large amounts on top of that, or relatively less, or is it, as Chuck says, everything's different and we can't really say?
It's hard to say how this is going to come out. I mean, we've got a number of potential sources of grant funding, for example, and they all have different match requirements. At some point, you've got to secure a site and get the site locked up. And we expect that there will be grant funding available for some of that. We expect that there will be a capital campaign that would cover the majority of the construction costs. And we expect that some of the foundations within the region would kick in. To the extent that some of those are more or less, there will be gaps that the primary partners in this may be asked to fill. So at this point, we can't say specifically, but you know, it's something that you have to be prepared to, once you commit to it, be prepared to make that financial commitment at some point.
I don't want to monopolize all the questions. I'm sure there are a lot of other ones too.
I just have one, regarding the site, you designated 3 venues in the report. Is it the city and the university that decides on what the final site is then?
Yeah, since this is a partnership, it's anticipated to be a partnership, that's something that you'll have to come to together. And you know, how the ownership structure of that is something that you'll have to work out between the city and the university, as well as selecting this specific site. We were, the consultant team had a preference for a downtown location that's walkable from campus. We think that the whole aspect of innovation is better served from a downtown location, but that's not to say that a highway site wouldn't work. And there are some benefits to a highway site as well in terms of visibility to the region and access for truck traffic and that kind of thing. But having access to the density in the downtown, proximity to amenities like businesses, other businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, those kinds of things, the downtown gives it a little bit of edge for the Innovation Center.
No.
Who's gonna work on the grants? Grant writing. I see that's also April.
That's right. Well, the university has already been engaged in writing some grants and giving some thought to that. We've got $50,000 in the budget specifically for a grant writer. And so we're suggesting that this project needs to have somebody specifically dedicated to chasing grants.
Other questions? No one else? Thank you, gentlemen, both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. This is being done under a public hearing format. No one has indicated a desire to do a public statement in favor or against or in general. Council discussion?
We need to read, if you haven't already, read this entire publication and probably have a work session
Probably soon.
soon. April's almost gone.
With the university.
Yeah, with the university.
What about next week? Tuesday?
Is that May 1st?
I don't know. Calendar. Yes. Can we do that? Does that work for you, Eileen, or
I think so. Next Tuesday, yeah, I think that would work.
Dick, does that work? Ben?
What time is library board meeting, Carolyn?
6 o'clock.
Ooh.
6.
We aim for 7. That work?
Good.
7? Steve, does that work for you?
Talking May
Or did I
1.
know no? Okay.
May 1.
May 1. The university get some people there? It doesn't work. How about Monday? Well,
Talk to the
I was
university
I was
and
assuming
send us
that you
around,
wanted to
get
do
an
this as
email
soon as
going.
possible. If we don't know when the university can meet, we're gonna have to wait and have you tell us what will work, and then we have to thread it into these schedules. So if you would do that. Okay, hopefully we can find a time. Okay, there's, at this point, if there's no other discussion, we should have a motion to close the public hearing.
So
We
moved.
close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second, Ken and Patrice. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Do you want to take action or just accept this as a received report?
I move we accept the report.
Second.
A motion and a second. No discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Delecky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, we have consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate if you prefer separate discussion and action. Item A is the minutes from the April 3rd and April 10th council meetings. B is payment of bills. C is appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight, I'm appointing Chuck Rundy to the Airport Commission to replace Kurt Kramer, and April Fuhrer to the Library Board. And I do want to note, we have a plethora of openings on city committees and commissions, and if you would like to consider serving, that would be terrific. You can pick up an application in City Hall in the clerk's office. I believe that's also available on the website, as well as a listing of committees. Some of the committees we have openings for include the Board of Appeals, the Commission on Aging, the Community Development Board, Community Safe Routes, Historic Preservation, the Board of Appeals, the Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee, the Freudenreich Animal Care Trust Fund, Housing Authority, Plan Commission, and that's it for what we have right now. So if those sound of interest to you, please, please, please fill out an application. We have openings on those things and no one with whom to fill them. So moving on to the next item under the consent calendar, we have licenses, temporary Class B license for St. Augustine University Parish, self-fermented malt beverages on May 6th. At the Spring Festival, temporary Class B license for the Platteville J.C.'s to sell fermented malt beverages at Legion Field on September 5th through the 9th from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. for the Platteville Dairy Days. One and or two-year operators licenses for premises licensed to traffic and fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors as indicated in your packet. Item E is permits. Number 1 is a run and walk permit for the National MS Society Wisconsin chapter at 10 a.m. on May 5th. 2 is a street closing for the Police Department Citizens Academy training with the SWHC disaster drill. That's Enterprise Drive, and that is from 5:30 to 10 p.m. on May 2nd. Is there any item on which you'd prefer separate discussion and action?
No.
Okay. Motion to...
I so move.
Second.
The motion is second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Tonight, under citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, we have Dan Winch, who would like to speak on downtown parking on weekends. Dan, if you please come forward to the microphone and address the council. Please state your name and your address, and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes.
My name is Dan Winch. I live 160 Stonebridge Road. I'd like to start by asking everyone here, who all is in favor of promoting drunk driving, say aye now. All opposed, say nay. No one cares at all. Okay, well, I personally am against drunk driving. And I kind of would expect the city to be as well. But I see all around the downtown area that there are signs that say no parking 3 until 6 in the morning. I'd like to make a few observations. 1, this town is comprised of a lot of individuals who go to college here or who have moved to the area and have not been here for a real long time. 2, a lot of people in this city have cars. 3, a lot of people in the city go downtown and drink. Now, if you combine all these, it results in individuals who don't know a whole lot of other individuals going downtown driving themselves and parking within a reasonable distance of where they want to be, which would be the bars if they're going downtown drinking, which a lot of people do. So to me, it makes sense that when they do go downtown, they will park within a reasonable distance, and that's something that is legal, and it's something that there shouldn't be anything wrong with. Now, when people do go downtown, there's the event that they drink more than they were anticipating. They find a good time and they stay for longer than they were anticipating. And if that does happen, you now have individuals returning to their vehicles and realizing, oh, I parked in this area that was within a reasonable walking distance of where I want to be, but now I'm too inebriated to move my vehicle, and you're now left with the option of, well, do I try to drive this thing drunk and risk the damage to both myself and everyone else in the way and anyone's property? Or do I leave it there and do the responsible thing and get a ticket? And I don't think that either of those are a good option. I personally think that since most people who go downtown do so on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, that we should make it such that you can park on those city streets on Friday morning, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning, because those would be the days thereafter where the vehicles would be sitting. And you're probably asking, well, why are these laws the way they are in the first place? And the reason for that is because the streets need to be cleared for snow removal and things of that nature. I believe my proposal will allow for cleaning the streets and for not promoting that drunk driving that we don't want to have. The other option, which would be a little bit more costly, but as the city grows, it will be necessary, is to build a parking structure where people can park the vehicles on the street, or in the parking structure. And while we probably don't have the need for that at this time, that will be what I would suggest going forward. But for the time, I would suggest just changing those nights so we can prevent a majority of what would be unnecessary drunk driving to protect everyone. And I'll take another vote here. Who all is in favor of protecting our citizens? Say aye.
Please address the council.
Okay. Would you be in favor of protecting our citizens?
Certainly, and there are many ways we can do that.
Right. So anyone in favor of what I propose? Say aye.
What is your proposal?
That we change the laws so that it can be parking is allowed on Friday morning, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning. So you just add a sign to the bottom of that saying except Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that way, the majority of those who go out drinking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday can leave their vehicles on the street, and yet we can clear the streets from snow. I personally believe that when the streets run red with the blood of people who don't need to die, you'll be begging for a little snow to cover that up along with your guilt if you don't change it. Go ahead.
Which would you rather pay, a parking ticket or an OMVI?
See, that's what I don't think it should be either. You're pushing people toward that ticket. I mean, people who go out drinking, a lot of the times, I mean, they're gambling with their own health already. What's to say they aren't going to gamble with a little bit more than that? And then what's to say that's not you walking on the street that they hit? You wanna?
I'm in favor of people not driving drunk, but my side question is, how are those people going to get back to their dwelling? Are they gonna walk? Are they gonna ride with somebody else? Is there gonna be a shuttle?
Well, there already is a safe.
Do you have a proposal on that or thought?
There already is a safe plan van or whatever they call it. So I mean, they can already take that home. And then the vehicles can sit on the street and they can come get them the next morning. And that would prevent that unnecessary.
I don't want to see the drunk people walking through the neighborhoods.
I'd rather see them walking than driving, personally.
Well, we have a lot of complaints as far as people walking through
Right,
the neighborhoods, drunk and vandalism, noise.
Yeah, I
et
heard
cetera.
about that. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I have a question. Is there any point at which people should bear personal responsibility for their behavior such that they actually think about what they're doing before they do it? And if they make a mistake, they bear the consequence of a $20 ticket, which is not a big deal. Why should we regulate everything so we can ensure people can drink to excess and not have to drive their cars home?
Don't get me wrong. I'm not promoting overindulging or whatnot. But I'm also realizing that you probably have a little bit more faith in your citizens than I do. I know that people who go out drinking, on a regular basis and whatnot, they probably are going to take liberties that you might not.
Okay, but is there a point at which we should expect people to bear personal responsibility for their actions, or are we going to simply legislate it so that they can get away with as much as possible?
Well, see, I agree that there should be some personal responsibility. However,
do we have that now?
What's that?
Do we have that now?
We
Or
do.
if you don't drive your car home, you bear some personal responsibility for not having planned ahead. You bear a $20 parking ticket or whatever it is.
There is that side to it, yes, but at the same time, the people who are going to be gambling with their health are also going to be gambling with your health. Because, I mean, there's a much more higher likelihood, in my opinion, that would just push right toward the drunk driving. I hear your point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nancy Kaiser's also indicated she'd like to speak under citizens' comments, so please come forward, Nancy, state your address, and let us know what's on your mind.
Okay. I live at 540 West Madison Street in Platteville. And I guess I have some questions as well as a complaint. So because I'm not that well versed in what's been happening in the community with building codes and planning, I don't know everything that maybe I should know. But suddenly it seems we have a plethora of ordinances that we must at all costs apparently enforce. So I purchased a property with the intention of cleaning it up and making it a rental property. And that process in dealing with our building inspector was less than, let's say it was adversarial. That would be a good word. So I got through that. So about 3 weeks ago, the renters in the downstairs moved a washing machine out into the driveway. I know their washing machine was broken, and I'm assuming they were going to dispose of it. So I got a notice because it apparently cannot be placed outside. It cannot, it says you cannot place furniture or anything that doesn't belong outdoors outside. So that means you can't even place it there, which seems to me extreme. So they placed their washer outside to move it. It didn't get moved, and it was upsetting me that it didn't get moved because I thought it looked somewhat trashy. So I got a notice from Rick. So I called them, I said this has to go, so they moved it. Last Thursday morning at 6:45 a.m., and you can correct me, but I don't think City Hall is open yet, I received a call from Rick. This will now be my 5th interaction with him. And he questioned if I had 5 people living in this house, which is supposed to only have 4 unrelated people. And truthfully, for one moment, I was a little upset when the phone rang because I have 5 kids that live all over the country and a 93-year-old mother, and I'm not used to the city calling me at 6:45 in the morning. It's a bit extreme. And I also have no idea of who's going in and out next door because their front door faces Lancaster. I live on Madison, so. Apparently, there's a girlfriend, and she's apparently had overnights. And I don't think at this point that we have legislated against that. But Rick drives in and out past this house and noticed a car there 5 nights in a row. So he made an assumption that somebody was living there. I still haven't been able to get a hold of the renter. I called him and left him a note. He hasn't returned my call. However, the point is that he could be having a car sit there for somebody while they're on vacation. He could be having a friend sleep over, which I think is still legal. I checked with an attorney friend of mine before I came here, excuse me, and found out that in their leases, they put something that says you can only have a guest for a period of 2 weeks. And so then I asked, does that mean that is the law, that the state law says you cannot have a visitor at your apartment for more than 2 weeks? And no, it isn't. It's just something that they have in the state lease they use. But apparently there's no legal, I don't know, do we have a lawyer? Okay. This is the reason I'm a little angry. Today I came home and I found another notice from Rick. This is 6 times in, 4 months? This says that these same people have inappropriate furniture. It's not intended for outdoor use. They have, once again, moved stuff outside, which I'm assuming they're preparing to move to the curb for pickup day, you know, the big citywide trash day. So they had to move the mattress into the garage. I called them tonight because it's inappropriate to have that outside. I drove around town at 5:30 today because I thought, okay, what's going on? And I'll tell you, the rental properties are looking better. We don't have overstuffed furniture. We don't have trash. It really looks pretty good. You know, some of the houses, they could use better landscaping. Not bad. The curbs and gutters, however, have trash in them. There were empty water bottles. There were empty cans. There was litter everywhere. So does the city have a responsibility to maintain that 24/7? Why would anybody call me at 6:45 in the morning? It's a question. Is it emergency?
Did you ask Rick? Why are you calling me so early?
I don't really ask him that. I asked him if he checked every other rental property in Platteville to see if there were sleepovers. Yes, Mr. Delecky?
The question I would ask you is this, is that if Rick happens to notice something, should he just ignore it because he's not looking at every single rental property in Platteville, of which there's something like 1,500, or should he point it out? And have you been fined for any of this, or cited, or had to pay a penalty
I
for
had
any?
citations during the building process,
Okay,
which,
but what about with this episode?
no, because I've taken care of it.
Because
And I
it-
still don't know who is, I still don't know if our girlfriend is staying there, because I haven't been in there to check for extra clothing. So I don't know if she's visiting or sleeping there.
I guess what I'm getting at is, has Rick been reasonable, do you think, in not simply writing a citation, but in trying to notify you before he'd get out the citation book, and now we got that, and we got money, and it's really a mess? Or is he trying to do you a favor by letting you know this stuff without simply
I
turning
think
it into a
Rick
legal
has
issue?
been totally unreasonable. And I think the direction for Rick being unreasonable comes from the city. I think we've gone nuts, quite frankly. I've lived in Platteville longer than, I only see 2 people here that I know that have been here longer than I am. Well, 3, you were born here. Anyway, and you're older than I am. However, I am a total proponent of having the rental property cleaned up. When they started that property licensing stuff, I was right on board with it. Where is the rationale? The way this ordinance reads, you cannot place. So let's just pretend my son comes down this weekend and helps me move some heavy object to my driveway that I want to get rid of on pickup day. I'm breaking the law.
If I got such a notice from Rick, you know what I would do? I'd thank him and I'd move it,
The reason it's there is I can't move it.
okay? But
I mean, we've
Okay.
just gone, it's like, has there been any discussion? Have we reviewed? Have we talked about what is happening here? And who in the world, do not get me going. I had a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning about a broken door on my building downtown. The door was hanging from a limb for 2 months. Nobody noticed it. 2 months later, the community officer went downtown and found my door loose. And thank God, how nice they were to call me. Where were they when the drunk smashed it in? We are finding furniture on front lawns. We are destroying green spaces. We are building like madmen. We don't have parking, but we're worried about sleepovers. Any comments? I mean, I would appreciate if you want to pull committees together, pull a committee together that's going to talk about this stuff.
Do you have anything in your leases about the indoor furniture outdoors? It should be in your lease.
I don't, but I have told them. I mean, you know, and this is not, I mean, there is a difference between a party happening on a front lawn and a stuffed couch being pulled out there and left for 2 weeks, and somebody piling furniture next to a garage that they're getting rid of. I mean, it's visibly a difference.
Nancy,
I
all I
just,
can say is I've had rental properties for at least 35 years. I've never had those problems.
with people leaving stuff around or being
That's
called
right.
by Rick at 6:45.
Neither one, because I don't allow the tenants to do that.
Right,
So if you take care of the tenants, tell them what to do, you won't have a call.
right, and I get that.
okay,
I understand that, but I also think that any of us can get a citation if we move a mattress out next door to our garage, because we want it outside to move on pickup day. And if Rick is not driving by everybody, checking everybody, why is he checking me? I don't want a special friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeez, thanks. I mean,
Thank you.
you know, I talked to 5 people before I came here tonight. There is not one person that is not angry and upset. And that's 5 people of probably the 500 I know. So, you know, keep going.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, reports, committee reports, Water and Sewer Commission, Killian, Delecky, Steiner,
Nothing.
nothing.
No
Airport,
addition.
Airport Commission,
No addition.
Tourism Commission.
Question.
Yep. Got a question?
I have a question about this shop local program. It says here that Jack Litkey was going to talk about it with somebody, or has already. What's the status of that?
That's a chamber program.
Shop local program, and it says it did not include the Main Street merchants.
Yep. Mr.
And it
Killian.
says in here that you indicated, Jack, that a conversation outside of the tourism committee as transpired in this meeting, the tourism meeting, was not the appropriate place to bring it up. I mean, I look at tourism commission as they're partly dealing with tourism, and shopping downtown is partly tourism too. So what can you add as far as this particular program or comments on this paragraph here?
First of all, I don't know what you're referring to, and secondly,
It's in the tourism committee meeting.
okay.
I don't think Jack has that in front of him.
What? Jack, you're gonna have to come to the microphone if you're gonna answer, because we won't be able to hear you otherwise. But it says here, and maybe Eileen, you could show them or something. Oh, you can't.
have it.
It's like you don't have a paper copy.
I can show him. In the minutes, this was brought up at a tourism committee meeting, and I believe it was not discussed at the tourism committee meeting because it wasn't relative to anything on the agenda at the tourism committee meeting that it was brought up at. I'm sure conversations have occurred regarding the shop local promotion, but that just wasn't the proper meeting for it.
What, did you give him, Jack, a copy?
No, I've seen it, Ken.
Okay, it says that the shop local program did not include the Main Street merchants.
Well, it included chamber merchants on Main Street. It did
Chamber
not.
only.
It
So
yes,
if you
it did.
were non-chamber, you did not get included.
That's correct.
But the chamber is a tourism entity, and I think the chamber, as a tourism entity, ought to be looking at all the merchants as far as shopping local.
But the point is that it was a chamber activity. The shop local program funds to promote it were raised by the chamber, and it had nothing really specifically to do with the tourism entity. It was a chamber promotion.
Well, this is an issue that has come up before, and so I just was curious about it as to how this is going to be resolved. I think it needs resolution as far as you need to include all the businesses, whether they're chamber members or not.
Then that takes away the benefit of being a chamber member.
That's
Well,
correct.
In a way, it's a punishment. If you're not a chamber member, you're punished by not getting any promotion.
Well,
We're in this thing together, Main Street and
I
away from Main
agree
Street.
with you, and we have been talking to the chamber about Main Street's participation in that, so that people who are not part of the chamber also could benefit by it. They were, that's why it was not appropriate to discuss it at that. It was not on the agenda. It was not a topic to be discussed at the tourism commission meeting. And we have since contacted, had discussions with the chamber, and the individual on the tourism commission that brought it up, I've had yet to meet with her and have a private discussion with her about why. The promotion was actually brought to us by the Shopping News, and we did not partner on it to begin with, but we would like to partner with the chamber on it. It just did not happen. And they ran forward with the
in the future, it likely will happen.
Well, Ken, you know, there are a lot of personalities involved here, and we are trying to work that out. And I think both sides can see that the city of Platteville has to be the beneficiary of us working together. And to that end, yes, we are trying to work that way.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Roundtree Gallery Board.
Nothing.
Other reports include the 2011 Tax Incremental Financing Districts reports for Districts 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The UW Platteville Transportation and Parking Update. I have some questions about that, but I may save them until later. Will you be here later, Christina? Okay.
She is now.
What's it?
She is now.
She is not, well, if you're not, I'd ask him right now, but the building inspection report is in there, and the department progress reports. Are there any items on which you have questions or would like to make comments?
If I could mention, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have an election coming up on May 8th, and absentee ballots are available in clerk's office, if anybody's a bit interested.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I do have a question for Howard. Have they started painting the auditorium yet, Howard?
They've started working on it. They haven't actually started the painting. They've started the scraping and some of the other preliminary work.
Okay. I meant to peek before I came up here and I forgot. All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on to action items tonight. Item A is the Wisconsin Community Development Block Grant Public Facilities Grant Contract between the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and the City of Platteville. I don't know if we need a staff presentation. This is the grant that we received to help do Second Street, $215,000.
This makes it official then?
Yep, and the contract's gone through our city attorney as well, so I think it's all set for you. Or did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, this is a standard contract that they use for all their grants. We don't have a whole lot of flexibility in making suggested changes, but it's the same contract that we've used for the other grants that we've received in the past.
Okay. Your motion?
Move
I
to
would
approve.
What?
Go ahead.
I would move to approve the Wisconsin Community Development Block Grant Public Facilities Contract between the Wisconsin Economic Development Corp. and the City of Platteville.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pilecki?
Yes.
Steiner?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Bonin?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B tonight is a request from the Library Board of Trustees to do an application for a planning grant proposal to apply for a CDBG planning grant. There's a submitted contract request for $3,500.
Well, I got a couple of questions. Let's see, in the papers that were in the packet, it talked about, let's see, from Cynthia Jaggy, President of the Economic Development Partners. She says, it's an honor to earn your business with Platteville Public Library. I look forward to working with you on this exciting project, but I'm not sure yet what the project is. I'm not aware of any ideas or plans going forward with library remodeling or a new library or exactly what this is for. I was the council liaison to the library from 2007 to 2010, and during that time there were about 4 studies done. One by George Lawson from Ames, Iowa, who was, I guess, like a library expert. Engberg Anderson, architects in, I don't know, Madison or Milwaukee did one. There was a strategic planning report done 2009 to 2013 or 14. And then I couldn't find the report, but I know that under the direction of Dave Berner, he had recommended that the library hire 2 real estate appraisers from Madison to determine what would be cheaper, purchasing property along Chestnut, along with the parking lot that First English Lutheran Church owns or building new. And so somewhere that report is out there. So I still question why we're doing another report and wanting to delve into the library building fund again. It seems like that money keeps going away more and more and more. Everybody wants their hands on that money. And like I said, there's been 4 reports out there already from 2007 to about 2010.
Cindy Tang is asked to speak on this, and she's going to have the best set of answers for you, so I think we should hear from Cindy. Cindy's the treasurer of the library board.
Cindy Tang, 995 Highbury Circle in Platteville. I agree, Patrice, that we've had a lot of studies, and the studies have all just focused on building and having the local taxpayers pay for a building. And what we're looking for now is a model that we can get a new facility, but not to have the burden on the taxpayers. And so writing this planning grant we'd be writing for a grant to put together a package, and included in that package would be a CDBG grant, and also putting the partners together to come up with an economic model that would work for the taxpayers of Platteville. You know, if we can have a developer develop the property that increases the tax base, and you know, the library could be one tenant in the building, but we're looking for state and federal money to do the facility. So I think it's a different approach. Yes, we'd like a new library, but we can't afford it. And so I think the time is now to look for other models. And what this would be looking at is different partners, you know, working together to create an economically viable model. And I don't know what that is. You know, I don't know if it's just part of the block. I don't know if it's the full block. But to just put together people that can write grants and to do some fundraising, and a developer that also has some money in the game. So this grant is for $3,500 to write a planning grant, and the planning grant would be to write another larger, possibly $500,000 grant for the project.
And how, I mean, is this the 500,000? It seems like, you know, like a carrot is being, you know, hung out in front of us as incentive. I mean, 500,000, sure, it sounds like awesome opportunity, but is that a sure thing?
No, it's not a sure thing. You know,
and again, are we going to end up spending 3,500 or actually 35,000 for
right.
Another report that, again, it's just shaving money.
You know,
it's just shaving those funds away from the library
right.
building fund, and I worry about that because everybody's after those funds.
I mean, something needs to be done. You know, we need to either do a remodel in a spot that's too small for us, or do an expansion. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, the fact is we need to do something, and the funds need to be spent. And so I think this study is, you know, we're just going for other funding, basically, and putting the people together.
We believe that there was a high probability of success with this, and to leverage $35,000 or $37,000 against $500,000, along with what also exists in the library building fund, plus an aggressive fundraising campaign, may get us most of the way where we want to be. And this kind of just appeared out of nowhere, and it kind of looked at it and said, $500,000, you think we should go for it, or should we not? And the sense was everybody felt it makes sense to try to go for it.
That they have been the state has been interested in this project. They've indicated that there is an interest.
Who has?
At the Department of Commerce. It's not Wisconsin Economic Development Corp. now. Has, you know, we've talked to them about the project, and they do have an interest.
Okay, well, again, I've never met this person. What's her name? Cynthia Jaggy. I know, I just feel uncomfortable saying yes to something that I really don't know too much about. And there's still no plan for the library block, because
this is to do the plan and to put the partners together. You know, it's not like we can say it's a $6 million project and the taxpayers of the city of Platteville are going to pay it. I mean, that's not going to work. And so it's putting together partners that can economically make this project work, and so that it's not a taxpayer financed project, that, you know, there's state funding, hopefully there's federal funding, there's other grant funding, and there are donations from the community. But Patrice, I think we need to do something, you know. Our facilities are old and it's getting pretty run down and it's small. I mean, you know that you were on the board, you saw the other studies. The problem was there was no money to do what the other studies thought we should do. And so here we're looking for other funds to do those things.
I have to commend the library board and the library director for looking for some unconventional sources of funding rather than just saying, why doesn't the taxpayer just pony up? And,
right.
I'm confident that between something like this and some aggressive fundraising and a foundation's efforts on this, that we might actually do that. Which would be kind of cool, because we don't have a lot of money. We're running up against our borrowing capacity. Everybody knows this. We're probably looking at one more cut from the state and shared revenues. We can't just keep spending money like crazy. We just can't do it. I mean, it's not like we were doing it anyway, but I don't know where we're going to get the money from. We've got a fire station we've got to deal with, an EMS garage we've got to deal with. We've got roads and storm sewers to deal with.
Well, we were told back then that police, fire, and EMS were going to come first. So, I mean, the library planning back then was, you know, we knew it was going to be quite a while before it was going to be done.
Well, that was a council back in 2007, and economic conditions are radically different than, go back to 2007, that's before the crash in 2008, it's before the big contraction in the state, it's before all the cuts in shared revenues and all the other stuff, and it just...
Well, there were monies from the foundation, and there was the library building fund, there was about $400,000 there, plus the library is worth something. We sold it.
So Patrice, we would really like to have a new library or more space, and we'd like that not to cost the taxpayers. That's sort of the bottom line of what we're looking at. Thanks.
I just worry about that library building fund money.
I think the other 35,000 was gonna come out of what we were gonna do with the repatriation of money back to the library, so it's not a further deterioration of that fund.
How much money sits in that fund, do you know, Carolyn?
165.
I think it was 175, I don't know what it was.
165,000, I think.
165.
Oh, but if we had the 40,000, which you graciously gave back to us, it's over 200,000. And we do have the library foundation.
Yeah, the
and we're
foundation.
establishing those funds now and identifying all of what's there. So, although the board has approved some renovation to the interior of what's happening now at the library, so some of that money has been designated for that.
How much is designated?
We're still getting bids and trying to identify what absolutely needs to be done, such as lighting concerns, and we just had some door issues, and some painting maybe just to tide us over for a couple of years.
Okay.
And the money will need to come from there.
From the building fund.
Patrice, our having the money in the bank sort of makes us have a better chance of getting state money because we'll need matching funds. And so that positions us in a better position than communities that have to come up with taxpayer funds. So that's one of the reasons I think that we feel that we have a better chance, because you have to have matching funds to get the state money in the end. So since we do have this money in the bank, I think it puts us in a better position.
So your plan is to combine a new library with something else?
Hopefully. I mean, it's whatever works economically. You know, we need to we'd like to increase the tax base of that area. So if we can get, you know, some tax producing property, you know, increase the tax base of that area, plus get the library, that would be good. You know, we don't know what that model is. We don't know who the developer will be, but we need to start working in that direction. And the first step is to get some state money in.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, I just worry about it being lost.
No, it's, would have come up with the money any other way.
Yeah.
Is there a motion here, or?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I think Ken got there first.
Okay. I won't
Second?
fight with.
Did you second it?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Delecky,
Yes.
Steiner,
No.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you. In fact, that motion, I believe, was to approve, Ken, is that right?
right.
We should actually specify that. He just made a motion. Could have
But
been
I said I
anything.
moved to approve.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Ask the secretary. clerk.
Okay, no, I believe you. I believe you. Okay, item C tonight is ordinance 12-12, repealing section 3.36, the Cable Franchise Committee. Given what the state has done, essentially, they have made the municipal code obsolete and the need for a cable franchise committee obsolete, and this simply corrects that in our code.
I move to approve ordinance 12-12, repealing section 3.36, the Cable Franchise Committee.
Second?
The motion is second. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Delecky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item D tonight is ordinance 12-13, amending section 39.20, permit parking regulations, specifically Roundtree Commons on-street parking. Larry or Howard, do you have a comment about that?
Sure. As we begin to enforce and implement the city council's permit parking regulations around Roundtree Commons, we've run into a scenario where we'd like to have hours set for the parking restrictions. You'll notice that the changes are in bold on ordinance 12-13, and the only change we're making is adding the from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday to both let numbers 2 and numbers 3. What this does is it tells property owners or visitors that they can park on the streets in this particular area with a permit, or from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for 2 hours, or from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for 15 minutes. So basically we're establishing a timeline or a time frame for which the 2-hour and the 15-minute parking is permitted.
The question was raised last time about there will still be no overnight parking from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Marquee Avenue, I believe it was, and also Southwest Road, is that correct? That would still be in effect?
We looked that up right after the meeting, and I can't recall what we had found out.
Well,
Do you recall?
I think that was still a little ambiguous, but the way that the regulations are worded, it says, in addition to all other restrictions, the following also applies. So by going by that, it appears as though the no overnight parking on those particular roads would still be in force for those 2 particular streets.
Okay, so the police department would be enforcing that?
Any other questions?
I suspect that there will be a request to change some of that. If you are used to parking on the street, and this would only be in instances where they couldn't park on the street now, correct? Your question?
Well, yeah, as I understand it now, there's no parking from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. because they're major thoroughfares, and so they were to be
Okay.
kept cleared.
On major thoroughfares, okay.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to get calls in my office from residents who are seeing the signs go up. So I'm trying to organize all of the concerns at once. So.
Well, I believe the current rule is, excuse me, law is that there is no parking from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on those. So I just wanted to clarify that that would not be changing with this permit parking situation.
Okay.
I think it was our understanding and our intent that that remained the same.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
I thought that was the intent, yes.
yeah.
Okay. If it comes back that we have goofed that up, you'll need to bring us something to correct that.
I don't believe there has been any mistakes, if that's the scenario you want to see, because that specifically hasn't been addressed, so it wouldn't have changed. The concern will be if residents come forward and ask for that to be changed, in which case they can certainly do that, but it would take an action of the council to reverse that policy.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the permitted parking amendment.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
DeLucky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item E tonight is ordinance 12-14, amending the official traffic map, specifically no parking on Camp Street between Lancaster and Hickory. Larry or Howard?
I've got this one. Last time we had it for information and discussion, I had originally proposed no parking on both the north and south sides of Camp Street between Hickory and Lancaster. The owner of 800 Lancaster Street requests that we only restrict parking on the south side due to the nature of that property being a B1 neighborhood business. After speaking with representatives from the school district and the bus company, we would agree to restrict parking on the south side only, and if it's determined that this is insufficient, we'll come back and request for it to be changed again. The amended ordinance is in your packet, only saying no parking anytime on the south side. So that is the new staff recommendation.
I would move to approve ordinance number 1214, amending the official traffic map where there is not parking on the south side of Camp Street between Hickory, or excuse me, where there's parking on the north side but not the south side of Camp Street between Hickory Street and Lancaster Street.
Second to the motion.
Steve got there. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
DeLucky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item F tonight is ordinance 12-15, amending the official traffic map, specifically no parking on one side of the street in the Fox Ridge subdivision. This was an agreement with the developer of Fox Ridge subdivision to allow them to construct streets narrower than normal. The solution to the issue of winter parking restrictions is to restrict parking as indicated in the ordinance to one side only.
I would move to approve ordinance 2012, is it? I can't read it on here.
12-15.
12-15, amending the official traffic map. No parking on Fox Ridge Road and Edgewood Court.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
DeLucky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item G tonight is a conditional use permit for 930 North Court Street. This is to allow a conditional use for a home occupation for massage therapy. This person has had this business in a couple of other locations, and we've had no difficulties with them.
I move to approve the conditional use permit at 930 North Court.
Second.
The motion is second. Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
DeLucky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item H tonight is a late addendum and addition to the agenda. It is a revocation of the temporary Class B and Class B retailer's license to serve fermented malt beverages at the Delta Sigma Phi fraternity for Delta Fest, specifically their charity band festival and street closure permit for May 4th and a rain date of May 5th. This was previously approved on the 27th of March. Either Larry or Chief McKinley, if you would explain the particulars for us in some detail.
Sure. On Saturday night, Sunday morning, April 21st, 22nd, officers from RPD responded to a call of a potential underage party at the Delta Sig fraternity house. Subsequently, 3 underage persons were cited in the area and indicated that they'd been drinking at the Delta Sig house. 2 individuals were then contacted at the rear of the house, one of whom was arrested on a valid warrant, and the other one, a request was made of this person to empty out the house, and they initially refused, stating that they had to get the approval of other fraternity members in the house. Ultimately, the house was cleared out, and today, in the meeting with the vice president and the president of the fraternity, someone estimated that between 60 to 100 people were in the at the party. Eventually, the house was cleared out, and citations were issued. Later this early Sunday morning, officers encountered 3 individuals who were walking back from the downtown area of Platteville, and they were screaming profanity that could be heard from several blocks away, and the profanity was directed towards the police and how they were deemed themselves untouchable and whatnot. Ultimately, the sergeant in charge of the shift made the determination that this was above and beyond what was needed for this situation. Made contact with these individuals and cited them. These individuals are Delta Sig members or associated with the fraternity. Later that morning, the same profanity that was shouted at the officers and directed to the police department was found spray painted in the street in front of the Delta Sig house. Subsequently, members of the fraternity did spray paint over the profanity, but it's still visible in the street. It's not legible, but today, after numerous phone calls, I met with the fraternity president and vice president looking to get some kind of accountability for this behavior out of them. And I let them know in a very pointed manner that this behavior was not acceptable, and also let them know that I felt that consequences were forthcoming for the behaviors that we had. I made a point of contacting the university about this, and they, the folks I spoke with over there felt that the permits should be pulled. I made a point also of bringing this to the city manager's attention and requesting that this be on your agenda, and I apologize for the fact that it happened at the 11th hour.
Questions for Chief McKinley?
Yeah, were the members of the fraternity that you spoke with, Doug, did they express any remorse or apology or anything?
Before they left, they did.
Oh.
But initially, one of them expressed that something to the effect of that there was a high possibility or probability that the graffiti that appeared in the street was not the result of anyone associated with their fraternity. I did not agree with that opinion.
And this frat house is where on Pine Street?
385 West Pine.
Corner of Pine and Bradford,
Oh.
south side.
Okay.
Greenhouse, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to comment on this since I've been involved in it since last night. It come to my attention at another meeting yesterday, so I went and talked to the city manager last night, and I spoke with the committee that is having the honor roll thing in the park, because the Delta Sigs are connected with that in this fundraiser, and the honor roll committee was going to be selling brats over there as another part of the fundraiser for that. So everybody in the honor roll committee is concerned because do we want to be associated with that or not? And so we don't know what to do. Or they don't know what to do, and they've all expressed concern that one of them, or Steve, is here to speak to us, but they're still concerned because of what was carried on to whether we want to be connected. I say we again. The honor roll committee wants to be connected with this or not, so we got to go from there. So what's everybody's feelings on this now?
I'm aghast at this, that we have a student organization that would come to us and ask us to close a city street and ask us to do permits and then turn around, and this is the way they behave. A party serving underage, the profanity, the disturbances, the painting in the street. I think we need to send a message. And I'm sure that whatever amount of money might have been raised through such a thing can be made up through other sources.
Correct.
I don't think we need to depend on an organization that engages in this kind of behavior for funding of anything, frankly.
Do you have a slip there from Steve to speak?
I do.
Okay.
Council gets first bite at the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the type of behavior that we as a council have been trying to, solve and fix for years, and now it seems like all our work is sort of all for naught. It's too bad. I just can't imagine college kids treating public property that way. And we approved that permit at the March meeting, with no questions asked. It was automatic. And that's how we get treated. I'm really disgusted. I expect much better behavior out of all college kids, and certainly fraternities and sororities. It's really disheartening.
Anybody else? Steve Kelly's indicated that he'd like to speak. Please come forward, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes.
My name is Steve Kelly. I live on 566 North Madison Street, Lancaster, Wisconsin. I'd like to start off by saying, yes, I do not condone anything that happened Saturday night. I was not here. I was not in town. All of the actions that took place are absolutely not representative of our fraternity. We stand against that. I forgot to bring my preamble to our Constitution, but stated directly in the preamble is that we are for our community, that our community is us, and that's not something we stand by. The members who are responsible for those actions are being dealt with. We have an internal judicial board system within our fraternity, and that's how we solve our issues. We deal with our issues with campus, and we try and deal with our issues internally. I have a statement here I prepared. For those of you who do not know me, I am Stephen Kelly, Vice President, Community Chair, and Philanthropy Chair of Delta Sigma Phi Fraternity. I'm also the co-founder and director of the Delta Fest Charity Band Festival. I am here today not to represent my fraternity, but defend the charity festival I have donated hundreds of hours planning, organizing, and executing. I say I'm not representing my chapter because the events that transpired will be dealt with and have consequences. What I am here for is to plead that the aforementioned consequences need not hinder a charity organization that is, at best, loosely tied to this fraternity. Delta Fest was created, founded, and organized solely by Ben Hine and myself. There have never been any financial backing for the event from the fraternity, as Delta Fest was designed to be a self-funded and executed event. Even though the Delta Fest Charity Band Festival is an entirely separate entity from the Delta Sigma Phi fraternity, it should be noted how much time has been devoted from the Delta Sigma Phi fraternity to the Veterans Memorial. With resounding support from the chapter members, we have volunteered our time, including installing the bricks with John Dutcher, moving all the statues to the Mining Museum, cleaning up and setting up the City Hall auditorium prior to the 11/11 dedication, helping set up the 11/11 dedication ceremony, including moving chairs, cleanup, and more. For the first event, the only affiliation with Delta Sigma Phi fraternity included some members that helped run the event and the fact that it was held at 385 West Pine. Right now, I'm trying to show you that there's a segregation between the fraternity and this event, that punishing the event for the fraternity's actions or the members of the fraternity is not just. To further issue assurance, precautions have been put in place for all foreseen contingencies. As per the permit requirements, we will have an area that is referred to as the beer garden fenced in with 3-foot-high or taller fencing. We will require those who want to drink to purchase a non-transferable wristband to be sold and carded by licensed bartenders. A Grant County Sheriff's Department officer will be stationed at every entrance and exit to the beer garden. Beer is only to be sold with a licensed bartender behind the bar as per state law and is provided by a licensed distributor. There will be security provided by volunteers to ensure that no individuals get out of hand, no underage drinking is allowed, and that drinking is confined to the designated areas. We are also open to any suggestions that will ensure that we have a safe and fun event. Furthermore, the events that transpired the previous week are unforgivable and are currently being dealt with, to include internal as well as assistance in police actions. So if the attempt to revoke the forms is seen as a punishment to Delta Sigma Phi fraternity, it will hurt not just those responsible, but wreak havoc on those who are not. To conclude, I just want you to know some figures about the festival, where we sit right now, so you can have sort of an idea of how this is going down right now. The goal for this festival is to raise $5,000, and I don't see that as being extravagant. At the moment, we have approximately $750 just from shirt sponsors alone, including only local businesses who have graciously donated their money to us. The amount of items donated right now total up to approximately $1,200 for raffle, and those will be raffled off all night. We have a PSA currently being circulated on Queen Bee and Radio Dubuque radio stations, as well as a TV interview that has taken place on TV5. A revocation will remove any chances of a future festival to happen. Even a revocation of the alcohol permit will hurt us because it's our #1 revenue for the event. It's our greatest source of input to output for money. No street means no music, means no event. All sponsors will have to return their products or monetary donations. Money that has already been spent will be effectively lost, and we cannot donate that. And since the festival will most likely die at the revocation, the future chances of another festival is cut to 0. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions for me, I would gladly answer them.
How do you feel your meeting with the chief this afternoon went?
I feel that we came into the meeting with different ideas. He wanted someone to blame for this, if it were, and I did not have any names. He wanted a name. I did not have any names to the graffiti in the street, which to our entire chapter is appalling. I'm working on it. We have our judicial board working right now. They actually should be meeting right now to discuss with the people who are possibly behind this, to discuss, if they are, how they're going to go about fixing this. I have requested any support from him that he can give me. Anything that I can do for him, I will gladly do, because I really want this event. This is my baby. So to hear that this could be canceled is devastating to myself.
Well, I spoke with the chief this afternoon. When you called me, I was in there with the chairman of the honor roll committee, and then the chief called you after that. And I know the chief's feeling is he's either way on this, and so are the chairman and the treasurer of the group. They're willing to go along with this, but there again, it's down to a council vote.
Mm-hmm.
So
if it comes down to it, I mean, I really want this problem resolved, because it doesn't just tarnish my fraternity's record, it greatly affects my personal record and everyone who's a member. So it's something I hold dearly that we really are working to try and fix.
This all sounds nice and all, but lost in this is several issues related to this fraternity, and while they may be only tangentially related to this, it looks to me like their name is on this. It looks to me like the fraternity house and properties involved with this. It looks to me like they're in this pretty deep. On Saturday night, big party, underage drinking, non-cooperation with the police, a lot of other problems with the house. If we just simply say, well, that's okay, too bad, whatever, and you're gonna deal with this internally and nobody knows what that means or what the penalties are gonna be or what the resolution's gonna be, in essence, aren't we saying that there's no behavior you can't get away with in this town and we're not gonna do anything about it? Isn't that essentially what we're gonna do?
I don't believe so. I believe that you have the right to do whatever it is to deal with that party, but I don't feel that revoking licenses for a charity event would properly deal with that. I've had members who have come up to me and said, who cares? Let them do it. We don't care. Well, I certainly do. And the ones who don't care are the ones who you're trying to reach. The members who are trying to reach the community are the ones that you're going to hurt with this.
Is this a one-time event, Steve?
This is a biannual event. We had one in the fall. We plan on having one next fall as well. And if you look at the fall record, granted the income from that event wasn't great. It went to founding this one, but everything went off without a hitch. There was no problems with the event, so.
Unfortunately, you're indicating you're trying to make the separation between the organizers of the event and Delta Sig, and it just doesn't work that way, because the license is being issued to Delta Sig. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the event. It has to be a club like that to get the license.
To get the liquor license,
That's
the
right,
alcohol license,
to do
yes.
this. So, I mean, you'd like to separate them, but they can't be separated. So what we're looking at here is the behavior of the fraternity. So as much as we'd like to separate them, we can't do that.
But the street permit is, I believe, if not under my name, it is under my associates.
It's the license to have beverages is given to the fraternity for this.
Yes, yes, I understand.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm for the recommendation to terminate it. Chief, thank you.
I have a question.
Is it for sure?
No, my question is for the chief of police. What amount of citation fines have been issued for this whole event?
I
Do you
don't
have
have
an
that.
idea?
I don't have that in front of me, no. The destruction of property, you don't have a suspect at this point. No. So and that- nothing has happened as it relates to the graffiti on the public property. Right. And to clarify a little bit, to say that I'm looking for blame, I very clearly stated to Steve that I was looking for accountability for the situation, and I didn't really feel that that measured up when we had that meeting.
Then I have a question for the university. As far as this action off campus, does this fall under Chapter 17 as far as something to be done by the university? So my question is, what action can be taken by university as far as the action of the people?
What are the possible citations or fines from the university or?
Joanne Wilson, Interim Assistant Chancellor for Student Affairs. I was the one who called the chief on Monday and asked him to revoke the permit. And as part of that, Artania Wesley, the Dean of Students, she's actually on vacation right now. I have a meeting with her scheduled for Thursday morning to discuss Chapter 17. And we will be calling on her to investigate, and then there will be a judicial board through the United Greek Council, and then they will make recommendations to me. So it will be taken care of within the next week or two.
Joanne, do you know what the maximum penalty would be for something like this? Or the minimum penalty?
I'm not an expert on Chapter 17, so I'm not going to say. Okay. But I can tell you that students are harder on students. So the judicial board that meets is students, Greek Council students, and they will make a recommendation to me. As we've dealt with a number of fraternities already and a sorority this academic year.
Okay. Joanne?
Yes.
How many instances has there been with
Delta Sig?
Delta Sig? Is there other things we don't know about?
This is gonna tell you the truth. I'm not really sure, because after a while all the Greek letters kind of roll together for me. And I've dealt with a number of them. I'm being honest. A number of them have been in trouble this year, and so I do not want to say yes unless I know exactly. And I'm not digging into Artania's records while she's on vacation. Okay? So she will take care of it when she gets back, and I will assist her.
Do you know if there are any programs, and I'm sure you do know, but
Yes.
what programs exist to not only have students understand the ramifications of behavior like this, but also help them recognize that they represent not themselves, but the university and the city and their organization, whoever that might be? What do we have in
Many
place for
of
that?
the sanctions that we have imposed upon the Greek organizations this year that had to do with alcohol is include alcohol programs that are run through the Pioneer Involvement Center that Val Wetzel will run. There's some of them have been required to do some off-campus service learning type things. We are not allowing, I've had a couple of fraternities request that we allow the sophomores to leave the residence halls and live in their living situation. We will not, we automatically say no if the fraternity or sorority is currently on probation or suspension. So those are some of the things that we've been doing. And this will be taken care of when Dean Wesley returns. Okay.
I'd like to bring up one other point, and that is that the city council has the authority to make improvements or to repair streets and special assess that to property owners if you decide to pursue that as an avenue.
$500,000.
It would have to be the cost of whatever it is to repair the street. It couldn't be a penalty. It has to be the actual expense.
I was being facetious.
Okay.
I guess one other question I would have for the chief is, I don't understand. We have 3 individuals supposedly involved in this, but the Delta Sigs say they don't know who they are. How are they going to deal? How is the fraternity going to deal with their situation if they don't know who they are?
They're aware of who's involved, and I think Steve would agree with that.
If I may clarify, we know.
Sure, Steve, come on up. Do the microphone so everybody can hear you.
We know who could possibly be involved, and there were the 3 individuals who, in the report, were downtown screaming obscenities. Those are the 3 that we suspect possibly did it, and like I said, they're going through our J-board process to find out who is the person responsible. And you were asking before, I'll clarify this real quick, what could come of our internal processes is expulsion from the chapter, notification. I mean, it goes all the way up to judicial of us turning someone in for doing something like that. And then, I mean, we could be monetary, but for something of this nature, it's not something we're going to joke around with. So it is going to be expulsion and hopefully monetary reparation for damaged property, and he's going to have to face some criminal liability.
Thank you. Of course, the lead into all of this was a party at which there was underage drinking, and so we can't forget that perhaps if we hadn't had that, at which virtually every Delta Sig had to know what was going on, we might not have had the rest of this. Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to revoke the temporary Class B retailer license to serve fermented malt beverages at Delta Sig Fraternity for Delta Fest.
Second.
The motion and a second. You left the street closure off there intentionally?
No, I can have the street closure on there, I assume.
Well, I'm just making sure.
Where do you see it?
It says charity band festival and street closure permit.
Okay, add that in.
Is that okay with the seconder? Sure.
Yes.
The motion and a second to revoke the liquor license and the street closing permit. Is there discussion?
If we just revoke the liquor, they could still hold an event without liquor.
Yep. They could.
Okay, anything else? Roll call vote, please.
Delecky,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes?
Nichols,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to information and discussion items. Item A is the tax increment district TID incentive policy. We have some issues with the compensation agreement in there. Larry, want to briefly explain
Sure.
that?
A couple meetings ago, the city council asked that, or directed that a paragraph be removed from that agreement, and that feedback be brought to you from PADIC, as well as a recommendation from the city manager as to what changes should be made to that policy. All I can say at this point is that we're still working on it. We are not ready to prepare or to present possible changes at this point. The reason it's on the agenda tonight was because it was tabled specifically to this meeting.
Okay. We'll put it back on next time and see if you have the rest of the information from PADIC.
Okay.
Item B tonight is permit parking on streets near UW Platteville.
I'd like to
Ken, go ahead.
provide a handout on that. I won't take much time talking about it. We're almost here, 2 hours already. So I'll pass those on to the city manager and Howard Crawford, please.
Barb's desk, I guess. Oh, this one
See,
goes to Jan.
yesterday, for exercise, I walked Greenwood and College and some other streets, and came up with this estimate as far as parking on the interior of the campus in relation to this popular permit proposal, and then also the exterior. So looking at the summary, you can look at the numbers some other time as far as in the drawing. The summary interior College Drive, it came up with 23 spots on the west, 45 on the east, Greenwood Avenue, 111 on the north, 114 on the south, University Plaza, 18 north, 15 south, plus there's 7 metered parking spaces. I came up with an estimate of 326 spaces, and if we charge $100 per space, that's $32,600. We charge $150 per space, that's $48,900. Then the summary exterior, West Main, I counted 68 spaces. If we have parking, Hickory, Greenwood to Irene has 12 spaces, that makes 80 spaces. But $100, that's 8,000, 150 is 12,000. So I was curious as to the numbers, and so this is what I present. Thank you.
If I could, in the conversations with the university, we did not get to this level of detail. So I appreciate the work that you've done, and we will take this to the university and use it as part of our discussions.
It was good exercise.
This is really.
I guess I could use that exercise myself.
This is really cool. I mean, there's a lot there. Certainly that gives us a basis then to maybe do some negotiating with the university and see where it goes.
I still don't have direction to go for and bring back an agreement yet. So at our next meeting, hopefully you can give me that direction.
Can we give you that direction without actually voting on it? As a consensus?
Well,
This is your meeting. You tell me.
I have a thought.
You what?
I have a thought on this, that there's gonna be a significant expense as far as doing the Roundtree Commons
Oh, yes.
thing, as far as cost of signs and cost of enforcement. So some of this money could go to that. That's my first thought.
Well, you do have in the budget $20,000 of added revenue that to this point we don't know how we're going to get yet. Hopefully this helps.
I guess no direction for you at this point.
Okay.
Maybe you could have some informal conversations. Item C is ordinance repealing and recreating section 41.18 prohibiting the possession of marijuana or other specified controlled substances and the possession, manufacture, or delivery of drug paraphernalia and amending section 1.10 schedule of cash deposits. Brief comment on that, or?
This was something that developed from discussions with the city attorney to address situations in which either criminal charges for possession of drug paraphernalia would not be appropriate, or cases in which the district attorney is elected not to pursue charges.
Questions? Thank you. Item D is a zoning ordinance amendment for section 22.10 modifications and exceptions. That's height limitations and yard requirements. Joe, brief commentary on that.
This is to correct a couple of items in that section that in response to sections that we've given variances over the years, for example, and also just administering the ordinance over the years, what I would consider areas that needed adjustment, because when you try to apply them, they don't really work very well. So I kind of put those together and came up with some modifications, and then there's a couple items that are needed to correspond to changes with the downtown design standards.
Okay, any questions or comments? Thank you. Item E is a resolution amending paid lunchtime provisions in the employee handbook, specifically with regard to the personnel policy, rules, and regulations. If we want people to be on call, they actually have to be paid as if they're on call. So we need to adjust the personnel policy, rules, and regulations manual to address that. Lunch breaks are good. F is the fund balance policy for the general fund relative to GASB 54. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued statement number 54, in which we have to break up our governmental fund balances into 5 categories instead of 3, if we wish to follow the normal accounting procedures. Sounds like job security for accountants to me. G is a waiver to sidewalk requirement of section 22.06 paren 1, specifically 245 East Business 151. There's a new multi-tenant building, commercial building going there, including to be occupied by Dunkin' Donuts and up to 3 other tenants, and this is requesting a waiver of the sidewalk installation. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is that because it'll be all parking lot, or?
My understanding was that because it is really not accessible from other places to get there, there's no crosswalks or things to get them over there. Although I had an interesting commentary by Cindy Tang, who's on the Community Safe Routes Committee, and she is opposed to this. Her feeling is that it should go to the Community Safe Routes Committee first.
It did.
It did.
It did.
Safe
Okay.
routes, yeah, they
This
came up
is
with
their
2 recommendations.
I would like to note that the bike trail goes right behind this property, so it's a natural connection. If somebody wanted to get to Dunkin' Donuts without using the intersection, they could come up the bike trail.
Okay.
Yes, that's
That
one of
was
the
the recommendation.
recommendations. The other one was to leave space for sidewalk in the future.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think eventually we will have
Bike
sidewalk.
trail does cross the highway right there, though.
Under the bridge.
Under the bridge.
No.
No, it doesn't.
You're right, you have to
Oh, goes over the top?
stop on that one.
80, 81, it goes, you gotta cross over, cause there's
Okay.
no underneath.
It's the other one that has underneath.
The other two.
All other bridges have room underneath. That's the only one that does not.
And item H is tourism entity agreement renewal deadline. Under the existing agreement, the city has to provide notification if they wish to decline renewal of the agreement 18 months before the expiration of the agreement. And this is on here for discussion tonight and potential discussion next time as to whether we want to pursue that. One option is to decline renewal with the idea that we would renegotiate it and perhaps have some different parameters. And I wanted to suggest also we might consider having the tourism committee make a recommendation to us.
I have a question. As far as, say, in 18 months, would it be better to say by a certain date in the year? Because they have to start by a certain date to make up the budget, the program for the next year. So could the tourism people look at that instead of saying 18 months?
Are you
By a certain date, you have to.
are you asking staff that question?
Staff, tourism
I mean,
committee?
the tourism committee, isn't there a staff rep on the, Steve? Maybe that's something that you
That's
could
up to Steve.
ask Steve.
That's a good question.
Instead of 18 months, that's a year and a
Well,
half.
Yeah, I think my own personal feeling is 18 months is a long time. I don't know if we need a date, but I would prefer to have that something like a year, 12 months.
Well,
And tie it into something on their budget.
Well, they start signing up for different organizations,
I'll bring it up
et
at the
cetera.
next meeting.
Would you ask them to make a recommendation on their feelings on that? And nobody should necessarily say, oh my God, what we're gonna do here is end the agreement with the chamber completely. That's not what we're talking about here. But rather whether we wanna modify this in some fashion or another. Is there anything else? Go ahead.
Are there any other concerns about the agreement that we want to tell the tourism committee before they take a stab at this, or is it just the timeline? I mean, it would be appropriate to provide as much feedback as we can at this point before they have their discussion.
The other alternative is we could just simply notify that this agreement as written, we do not wish to renew, and that would give us a little bit more time to work and figure out exactly how we might like to modify it. So it isn't necessarily that within the next 5 weeks we have to have an answer to all those questions. I'm not sure we could get there.
One of the things we've been discussing is and we've discussed this at the council level before, but in the tourism committee's meetings, we've been discussing the format of the financial statements and how that information should be provided. And if you read the minutes earlier that Ken referred to, there was a recommendation that I meet with the
Boston Plymouth.
accountants that chamber hires to come up with a different format. And I think the problem with the existing financial statements that we're gonna deal with is that, and we were discussing this, is that we have a budget set up one way, the financial statements are set up a different way, and the two never come together. That's the problem that they have. The budget is based upon activities, and the financial statements don't tie into those activities. So that's what we're gonna try to provide. Hopefully.
Is there anything else?
Well, I think there should be means for groups or people to get money from the tourism entity. I think the tourism entity should be looking more at different programs, new things for the city. I think those are important things.
Dick? I thought everybody was gonna get one of these from.
Oh, we did. They're downstairs in the mailboxes.
Oh,
Not everybody may have them at this point.
okay, it's,
So,
don't need to
that was
come up here then.
excuse me?
Don't need to be brought up then, here.
Oh, could be whichever you like.
Oh.
But we can talk about this next time as well, so. Is there anything else? Okay, this ends the televised part of the evening. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, a well-needed 5-minute break, and then reconvene to discuss with the UW Platteville folks updates and news and some other things, so.